West, sorry. Thank you.
Gotcha.
Thank you.
Okay. All right.
But yeah, no, it's amazing sort of showing the film so close to where they were, and you know, I'm definitely going to be making a pilgrimage to Bank Street in the next few days.
Awesome, good to hear. So yeah, because of that electricity, I'd love for you to participate in this conversation with me. So I'm just going to have a few questions here off the top, but I am going to come on to you for questions. So if you've got some, just hang on to them, but we'll get to you. So at the beginning of the film, one of the people that I had wanted to thank but forgot to was Peter Worsley, who's the producer of this movie and is a large part, responsible for getting the screening set up with you being here. And when Peter was just telling me about how the project initiated, getting the rights to this great concert, that the one-to-one concert that was the only full-length concert that John had done after the Beatles split up. From that moment that the project was brought to you and Kevin, just with this idea of building something around this concert, can you tell us about how the concept of the spine of the film and like the clarity of vision evolved?
Yeah, I mean, one of the great things about working with Kevin is that he sort of basically, you're blindfolded at the beginning of the project, you don't really know where you're going, and he's really someone who wants to feel their way forward. So we were given this concert, and we over the period of a few months, we worked out a concept, and actually, we wanted to have a film where people could spend time with John and Yoko and actually get to know them in a way that is beyond the cameras and that sort of thing. So Kevin sort of, in the end, came up with this concept of actually experiencing their world through their eyes, and they were avid TV watchers, and so we tried to recreate the sort of TV world of 1972 in New York, and meld that together with the spine of the concert, and sort of tell really the story of how the concert came about, but also tell their experience of 1972 in New York.
So I was joking that when I first saw this film, I had wanted to count the number of cuts that were in it, because I thought, it might rival Mad Max Fury Road, for example. There's just, so much cutting. But it's beautiful the way you stitched the film together, yet kept us very clear about where that is happening. But it's very, very original. And could you tell us about those moments of constructing it and testing it, and how did you know you had kind of landed on the right spot?
How did we know we had a film?
There you go.
I mean, so Kevin kind of actually, he came up with this concept of being quite brutal with the cuts and sort of painting this picture of television and sort of hitting through the channels, and I remember the moment him sort of pitching the idea to me, because I was thinking, God, hang on, is this going to work? And I was worried that it was, he was worried too, but we were worried it was just going to seem like Instagram Reels from 1972 and have no kind of, narrative through path or anything. But I also knew that worry was a good thing, because we weren't going to rehash something that had already been done, and there's so many kind of films out there about the Beatles and John Lennon, and so we were quite a long way through the edit when we still didn't know if it worked, and we were quite worried at a certain point. But we did a screening about 2/3 of the way through the edit, and it was a big relief, because we could see that people were piecing the things together, even though they were kind of very rough, and so that gave us a kind of proof of concept. So we were all in on that, and let's go for it and try and piece this narrative together in this kind of fragmented way.
And were you thinking of, I mentioned in my introduction that I feel so many parallels to our current moment, and what John John and Yoko were, they were new to America, new New Yorkers, trying to figure out what they should be doing, or where they fit in, or just what to make of this crazy country they had adopted. When did those thoughts start to come in, or did they?
When did we start noticing the parallels?
Yeah.
I mean, we noticed the parallels at the beginning in terms of the discordance in society, and the progressive left and the sort of right, and so we were sort of immediately struck by that parallel. But it actually, things kept on cropping up, actually happening as we were doing the edit. Obviously the assassination attempt on Trump, and then after the edit, Trump's kind of landslide victory, that was all sort of paralleled Nixon, and so these kind of actual events kept on popping up, sort of solidifying that initial idea. But that wasn't the intention when we set out.
Yeah.
That was just happening.
Right, and they're still happening. The deportation idea. Yeah. So if you have any questions, I'd love to. Oh, one right here.
So I was wondering if that was the whole concert, or if they're gonna release the concert separately as from the original.
So I'll just repeat the question for the people in the back. The question was about the concert, and if we saw all of it, or if there will be a separate release of the concert at some point.
Yeah. There's also after this film comes out, there is the full concert is going to come out, but I'm not sure the platform, but yeah, it's not the full concert. There were other songs played, and in fact, I mean, there were other people playing that night as well. Like Stevie Wonder and the Beatles. So.
Yeah, because the last time it was only on VHS.
Yeah. It's been remastered.
Yeah.
And, both sounds and visually, so
cool.
It will be a much better experience.
Cool.
And this film, by the way, 1-to-1 will be released in IMAX theaters on April 11th, so 1 month from today. So that'll be another great experience to show and the ideas of this film.
Yeah, we're super excited about it.
Yeah. Right here.
That was a question. Just a comment that the editing is amazing. I was 17 in 1972, and it just immersed me right back there. And I'll also say that the sound, the remastering, was incredible. And again, that was part of the immersive effect. And this is a masterpiece. I really want to thank you for the work.
Woo!
Thank you, man.
Absolutely agree. Okay.
I should just say that what we were intending to do was really not try and force a narrative on the film, but actually give people the experience of being there to make it like a time capsule, and I'm really glad that it had that effect.
Great comment, thank you. Right here, Ben.
So I was at the concert when I was 14.
Wow.
And I went to the afternoon show because I didn't even know about the night show, and I found an ad that the afternoon show had been added, so I was able to get tickets. Geraldo said, come on down, because it wasn't completely full. Ran down to the front. It was fantastic, the best sound I've ever heard at a concert. Even though it was my first concert, I still never heard such a great, roaring, thunderous, beautiful sound. When John started singing Come Together, that was the Beatle voice coming out. It was incredible to hear that. And I really went mostly to see Yoko, because I love Yoko, love her music and everything. So I just want to thank you for, featuring her and, bringing out her essence a little bit, her humor. And I wrote a biography about her, and I tried to include all of that in there, and I hope you read it. And what I want to say, Stevie Wonder, he performed Superstition for the first time ever before it even came out on record, and that was a highlight too. So this was like a whole movie to me. It was beautiful to see. I didn't understand all the politics behind it when I was 14, but I knew it was turbulent, and something had to be done, and John was trying to do it.
Thank you for that. So for anyone who didn't hear, this lady was saying that she was at the concert. She was 14, and she actually went to the afternoon concert because she didn't know there was an evening concert. It was sold out maybe at that point, but she was just thanking Sam for the way that Kevin and Sam highlighted Yoko in the film.
Yeah, I was just going to say that I've probably actually seen footage of you because I went through, frame by frame. So I've probably seen you before. And I mean, with Yoko, I mean, you can't tell this story without Yoko. It's the story of both of them together, and we were really kind of sure of that, and also I found, I mean, Don't Worry Kyoko is that performance I find really moving personally, and I loved her 2 tracks in the film. So.
And I'd like to give you a book after, so don't go away.
I love that.
Okay, I have more questions with just some eager hands here, so we'll start with you.
Thank you. Unbelievable. Fantastic. Okay, I think doing the channel changing was just brilliant because John and Yoko were so known to be such TV watchers. And then what you brought in, I can't imagine how much footage from that time you must have looked at and how you made the selections, not only of the subject, but the sliver of the subject, and went from the odd America pop culture to really powerful moments from the war, and you stitched together an unbelievable story. And if you would talk about how how did you get to this? How did you get to that?
Yeah, so this gentleman was just praising the editing and kind of asking Sam if he could talk more about how you got to this sort of final mix of shots and ideas. And that was actually one of the things I wanted to jump in, was just to ask about so much of this incredible archival footage that we haven't seen before. Like, could you talk about how those pieces came to you?
Yeah, I mean, there's kind of 2 different things here, because I think basically there's the mass of footage that we had to go through to kind of find those little bits to kind of show the time, and we went through a huge amount of stuff. I mean, just like I can't, it makes my brain hurt to think about it now, but we were completely obsessed and going through hours and hours and hours. I mean, thousands of hours of footage, and the way we did it was really, and this is kind of testament to Kevin as well, really, but it's sort of followed this feeling, really. We weren't trying to enforce a narrative. We were just looking for bits of moments in archives that felt like they were saying something, and we weren't trying to make them say anything. We were just thinking, oh, that feels like it's an important moment, and we put all these bits in, and we'd have sort of a 10-hour timeline and slowly whittle bits out, and really it was a kind of trial and error thing, and seeing what stood the test of time, what clips stood the test of time, and what you see here is really the culmination of that, is the things that really, over a period of months, we felt this is really strong and should stay in here. And to answer your question, I mean, you mean the sort of John and Yoko?
That, but also the phone calls. I think no one's asked about the phone calls yet. That punctuation throughout the film is just it really throws up our expectations. And so where did those phone calls come, and how did you know that they fit in as this?
Well, I mean, that was, again, we were quite a way through the edit when Simon Hilton, who works for the estate, called us up and said, I've got something that you might be interested in. And he'd been in the archive and had found a box of old 2-inch tapes, and it was basically all the tapes that they'd had, that they rigged up the phone. All the calls are from their phone in that flat, and they rigged up. You saw that I think it's called a Naga machine, and recorded all these calls. And so suddenly it was this kind of gold mine and sort of portal into really hearing John and Yoko, and as they are, not in the public facing way at all. And that was a really big moment, and we then they became an integral part of the film slowly. So.
Cool. Fantastic. I'm gonna go with you there in the middle. I think I saw you. Yeah, you right there. Yeah.
I was just wondering how you decided to, intersperse that other footage with the concert footage, because, like, for example, Instant Karma can be a song about, an individual person's feelings, but you decided to, make it kind of, like a Vietnam War music video, which I thought was kind of, a little unusual, and I'm wondering what motivated that, definitive, narrative choice instead of, was it just that the concert footage felt like a dynamic when you played it through?
So he was just asking about, in particular, the Instant Karma sequence and why Kevin and Sam chose to edit images of the war in.
I mean, you mean on all the different tracks? I mean, we edited. We didn't, we felt like some of the tracks spoke quite clearly to certain things, and we wanted to make them part of the sort of wider narrative. So some we played out like come together just as the concert, and others we turned into montages for part of them. Yeah, as I said, some were kind of more obvious and some were less obvious, and Instant Karma is an interesting one. We felt that actually there was something disturbing about pairing that with really, traumatic footage of the Vietnam War, and that actually, putting that footage with Vietnam War with something that was, I don't know, I'm trying to think of another song, but something that was more known to go with that sort of footage. We're so used to that actually we wanted to create a kind of counterpoint and to make it sort of unnerving. So that's why we did that, and we were kind of, again, like everything else, just following the feeling really, and letting that feeling tell us what was the right thing to do and what wasn't. So.
Thank you. It's one of my favorite sequences as well, so thank you for that question. So, yeah, right here.
I'm actually a music manager and in the industry, so I appreciated the phone calls and all the different, and the following
Allen
back,
Klein.
circling back to the flies, which brings me to my point of, why did you guys decide to continue using the phone calls about the flies? Was it to show, because you've shown Yoko mostly in a very, a good light and a sensitive woman and a non-demanding artist, and then you have her, as a lot of people I work with, saying, get me those flies, I don't care what happens. I was wondering why you decided to do that, or if you decided to just do that to keep the mood maybe a little lighter when there's a lot of heavy other scenes.
So our question is, music managers, you appreciate the phone calls and essentially those, like the flies. Why the flies?
I mean, I think it was both really. It's it was a bit of levity through the film and something that attracts sort of provided another spine. But also, I mean, we being humans, we all have good and bad, and light and dark, and showing a little bit of Yoko bossing people around is fine. I mean, we weren't trying to say she's a bad person or anything. I mean, the idea of someone slowly being bad isn't quite, isn't quite right.
I actually saw it as her becoming an Americanized musician. But she's in New York and has to ask for whatever she wants, she flies.
Yeah. No, we were trying to show them in, their full gamut.
And to keep the circling back of the levity and the joke
Yeah.
in a way.
Yeah, it's funny, someone watched the film and thought they were trying to score drugs and it was a code until the end. But it wasn't. It was just an installation.
All right, thank you. Good question. Yeah. Did you have a question?
I'm just curious about the apartment scene we've seen throughout the film.
Mm-hmm.
Like, how did you set that up, or is that, like, how did you build that?
The apartment, so the apartment is obviously recreated, but how did you set it up?
Was it like actual apartment, or is it like digital
No, it's not digital. It was built in a studio. It was recreated in a studio, and it was everyone went absolutely mad about doing this to the most minute detail. So it has a lot of their actual objects in there that were theirs, and things we couldn't get, we recreated. So the exact same bedspread was knitted and so forth, and so all the proportions of the room and everything. So it was really like a kind of a labour of love to kind of do it. But it was the only bit that we filmed. Everything else is archived, but we felt like it was the sort of geographical, spatial core of the film. I mean, it's kind of amazing that they came to New York and just a few streets from here lived in this small apartment, and they were maybe the most well-known couple in the world. John was certainly the biggest star in the world, possibly, and they had this apartment that you could knock on the door and one of them would open it, and it had sort of 2 rooms in it. So we felt like it was an important part of the story.
Right here.
I was really struck by this sort of unresolvable tension between the activism and the art. So I was really also happy that Yoko's art was there. And to see that with Ginsberg and Jerry Rubin and Abby Hoffman and all of that, and to see how that all developed. I wondered if you, going in, did you already have an idea about their sort of activism development and their idea about it, or did it just sort of materialize, as you read it?
So the question is about the tension between their activism activities and their artistic activities, and how Kevin and Sam negotiate that.
Yeah, I mean, we didn't have a clear idea at the start, but it sort of quickly became apparent that they had their kind of gang, in the village, and there were all sorts of interesting characters in that gang, and the Bank Street was really a kind of social centre for that gang. Unfortunately, there was no archive of everybody in the flat, in the apartment, but what we came to sort of realise, and what we sort of hope the film sort of expresses, is that they were really influenced by that kind of group, and they set out to change things politically, and explored that, and sort of flirted with violence and that sort of thing, but they sort of broke away from that at a certain point, and came, went from a sort of more political to a more kind of human kind of level of changing things, and thinking that they can change themselves through sort of various things, but also doing the concert and benefiting people in a smaller human to human way, and that's the sort of play of the film, in a way, that it goes from this kind of political to this kind of more smaller but human to human change.
Thank you. So we just have time for 2 more questions. So we'll go with you and then come over here. Yeah, go ahead.
I wanted to know if you could speak a little bit about how involved Yoko and her, not her personally, but her archival department, how deeply they were involved and what the process was. Before I forget, the clips of the feminist conference, who knew that was amazing. As peripheral as it might have been, that's great. So, did you go to them with hey, what did you got from this date to this date, or did they give you free reign, or what was that process like for your department?
Did you all hear? Did you hear? Okay, I think they heard.
They kind of gave us free reign. I mean, Kevin is a very renowned filmmaker, and so they were respectful of that, and that gave us quite a lot of freedom, and they were super helpful. We definitely harangued them all the time, saying, what have you got between this and that? And I was calling them up saying, "You sure you haven't got anything else?" You know, but they kind of gave us, you know, various kind of big batches of footage, and in amongst it, you know, the feminist conference is a prime example, because, you know, we're sort of looking through these things, these folders and folders, and on these tapes, and it's something like, oh my God, hang on, you know, and you know, it's been tucked away somewhere and hasn't really been looked at properly, well, not properly, but through the lens of today, maybe you could say, for a long time. So there were all sorts of moments like that in the footage that they gave us, and they were great, actually, and they did that without being hands-on. So.
Okay, so last question. Okay, right here. Go.
Okay, well, I'm just gonna, it's not really a question, it's just, I just want to say how much I enjoyed the film tremendously. And then it's an invitation, because I run a series at the Queen's Library called Culture Connection, and I wanted to invite you to do a filmmaker talk with us, with your other co-director. We could possibly do it virtually, and then invite the rest of the audience, because we have May Pang, who finally procured the flies. Who's coming to the library for Women's History on March 22nd.
That's amazing.
It's on Eventbrite. Flyers here from
Eventbrite, I love it.
And May Pang is going to be out at the library with Susie Ronson, who's got a new book, and they're going to be talking about, you know, the intersection of Bowie and John Lennon. So.
Wow.
Oh, amazing. I love it. All right, so I have just one last thing I want to say, which is that tomorrow, the poster for the movie's release and the trailer is going to be released, and as well, tickets are going to go on sale for the IMAX release. So if you love this movie as much as I do, and I love this movie, please let everyone know and get them hyped to go see it on April 11th. So thank you, Sam, for being with us. Thanks for coming out.